am pleased to join you as we welcome the arrival of more than 2.8 million doses of Sputnik 5 COVID-19 vaccines. This gives us reason to be thankful for the strong support of our friends from the international community in overcoming pandemic. Let me express my gratitude to the Russian government for the continued supply of life-saving COVID-19 vaccines to the Philippines. These deliveries affirm Russia's commitment to achieve local vaccine equity and improving vaccine accessibility to countries, especially the Philippines. I deeply appreciate Russia's efforts in fostering cooperation in various areas, including the fight against COVID-19. Goodwill initiatives such as this vaccine and others demonstrate the strong ties and friendship between Russia and the Philippines.
The News Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. MMDA General Manager Don Artes says the IATF will meet today and will likely discuss the appeal of Metro Manila mayors to lift the mandatory face shield policy. Artes reminds the public that pending a resolution from the IATF, the wearing of face shields indoors and in crowded areas is still required. As for the validity of the ordinance released by the City of Manila, Artes defers to the decision of the DILG. But since Metro Manila mayors reportedly reached a consensus, Artes believes it's only a matter of time before the IATF eases the face shield requirement.
Normally naman yung mga recommendations ng Metro Manila Council ay pinakikinggan ng IATF. But it's a multi-department, multi-agency technical working group na maggagawa ng recommendation sa IATF. Then the IATF, again, composed of secretaries and different departments, will decide whether or not the recommendations of the Metro Manila mayors will be followed.
Meanwhile, the PNP says they're just waiting for new guidelines from the IATF, but they're still enforcing the current policy for now. For her part, DOH Technical Advisory Group member Anna Ong Lim said the face shields provide an additional layer of protection. But as COVID-19 cases start to decrease, she said it might be time to re-evaluate its necessity.
Well, ever since naman kasi, the view about the face shields is that it provides an additional layer of protection, particularly to prevent entry of droplets into the eyes. Kasi it's a portal of entry talaga. When we talk about using PPEs, you balance the risk of transmission, where it enters, and the rate of transmission. And one of the things that has really changed in the past few weeks is the fact that we are on the downturn in terms of our cases. We have decreased our alert levels, and so it becomes appropriate again to re-examine whether all of the PPEs need to be in place, some of the PPEs need to be in place, or we can modify.
The National Task Force Against COVID-19 says the government takes vaccines that are nearing expiration off the hands of the private sector so that these supplies can be distributed immediately. NTF spokesperson Restituto Padilla says the national government and the private sector are teaming up to distribute as many doses as possible, especially to high-risk areas. Vaccine supplies that are nearing expiration are prioritized for distribution, while stocks that could take longer to expire remain secured in cold storage facilities. Padilla admits that some LGUs still lack the capacity to store COVID-19 vaccines, but he assures the public that there are vaccine supplies enough to sustain the vaccination drive at least until next year.
Yung distribution ng ating mga bakuna ay going on in a fast pace. Kasi ang pinaka-importante, ang maipamahagi lahat ng bakuna para maitaas nila yung pagbabakuna nila sa mga lugar, lalo na yung may mga risk pa rin ang pagtaas ng mga bilang ng COVID. Ang gawin natin, i-invest natin yung mga resources natin sa pagpeprepara at paglalagay ng mga storage facilities dahil itong pagbabakuna laban sa COVID maaring tumagal ng 2 taon pa.
The new anti-COVID pills are a breakthrough in the world's battle against the coronavirus pandemic. But an expert from Johns Hopkins says vaccines are still necessary. Let's watch its Bloomberg report.
Doctor, I'm sure you've had a look at some of the data that's come out of that trial. What have you learned?
Well, it's a pretty impressive result in a very controlled clinical trial. So what's going to happen is the FDA will review it really carefully, and then if it is authorized, which I think is a pretty fair bet, then we'll see how it performs in the real world. A really important thing to keep in mind is it does have to be given in the first few days of illness. And so that really means people need to get to care to know it exists. And it's kind of similar in that sense to monoclonal antibodies, which are very effective also, but many people can't get to in time.
Dr. Sharfstein, this goes to distribution as well. In other words, how much are drugstores, pharmacies, actually the first responders when it comes to some of these viruses, if they could test and then distribute these drugs in short order rather than waiting to go to the doctor and get a prescription, some of the rigmarole that keeps people from getting certain medications quickly?
Totally fair question. And I think as we, understand the data on this medication, that may be an approach to take. I mean, it's not necessarily too hard for people who have doctors to get in touch with them and get prescribed things quickly, but you're right. A lot of people don't have doctors, and this may be a case, depending on what the evidence is, that where it would make sense for there to be rapid approaches, standing orders, pharmacy prescribing, but have to take one step at a time.
This is one notch on the reopening moment that we seem to maybe be in. There are some people talking about a 4th or 5th wave, but it's diminished relative to where we were earlier in the year. And you are seeing travel reopen, certainly with the corridor between the U.S. and the United Kingdom. How much does this indicate a reopening versus perhaps introducing danger? In other words, was there a reason for this to be as closed for as long as it was from a virologist point of view?
Well, I mean, from a public health point of view, some of the travel restrictions really haven't made a huge amount of sense because there has been so much virus inside the United States. So restrictions, such as restrictions at the border, have always been a puzzler. The real challenge has been within the border and controlling things. And we still have 75,000 infections a day. So I do think that we're moving back towards a new normal. The new normal is not going to be the same as 2019, but I do think it's going to feel a lot more like we have our lives back.
Does this reduce the urgency to vaccinate the remaining population, this pill?
Well, see, here's I think one of the big challenges, that the same population of people in many places, not in all places, who are reluctant to get vaccinated may be reluctant to go and get tested for COVID in the first place and find out that they need the pill until it's too late. So, the best thing by far is to get vaccinated. The other thing to keep in mind is that viruses can adapt and can actually escape from some of these antiviral treatments. So, what looks good in one clinical trial now might not look good a year from now as the virus mutates. It's actually, in some respects, easier to mutate away from a pill than from a vaccine.
Supporters of Bongbong Marcos flocked Tacloban City as the former senator and presidential aspirant visited the city to commemorate the 8th anniversary of the deadly super typhoon Yolanda on Monday. Marcos Jr. attended a mass, joined a candlelighting ceremony, and laid a wreath on the mass grave by the Holy Cross Memorial Garden. Some critics dubbed this visit as early campaigning and accused Marcos Jr. of using the tragedy for his own agenda. But some residents praised the former senator as being one of the first politicians to visit Tacloban after the tragedy. Vice President Leni Robredo further embraces the Leni Lugaw tag, then making a cooking video for her iconic rice porridge with none other than Filipino vlogger and comedian Mimia. The collab video also features Robredo giving life advice to the younger generation, ranging from topics like fashion to finding happiness, as well as how to deal with a quarter-life crisis. Mimia also asked the vice president for some love advice, by which Robredo said one should not actively seek out a relationship, as desire can cloud a person's judgment. After filming the vlog, Robredo also joined Mimia for a quick TikTok video. And the Cooking Essential Lugaw vlog has gained over 850,000 views as of this morning. It is number 4 on YouTube's trends list.
Hindi, ako ang paniniwala ko kasi dapat hindi mo siya sinisik. Pag sobrang desire mo magkaroon ng jowa, paminsan naka-cloud yung pagtingin mo, di ba? Pag may dumating, akala mo siya na. Tapos later on, marirealize mo, ay, hindi pala yun kasi dahil lang sa desire mo magkaroon.
Inaano ba kita dyan, Ipinelli? Gusto ko lang naman kumain ng lugaw, inaano mo ko.
Former police officer Eduardo Asierto resurfaces after 3 years in hiding. Now he's offering himself as a witness in the Senate probe against former economic advisor Michael Yang. Marlene Alcaide with a report.
After almost 3 years in hiding, former anti-drug cop Eduardo Asierto resurfaces, this time with a new set of revelations on formerly executive Michael Yang. He said the Senate would not be probing government's deals with Formally if it had listened to his first intel report on Michael Yang back in 2018. Formally's executives tagged Michael Yang as the company's financier and guarantor.
Kung hindi tinago ang report ko kay Michael Yang at Alan Lim, hindi nangyari ang korupsyon ng Formally. Walang nanakaw na pera ng bayan.
Asierto said he submitted his intelligence report to senior officials in Malacanang, generals, as well as the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, but nothing happened. He is now challenging Senator Richard Gordon to publish his intel report.
Napakaswerte nila Michael Yang at Alan Lim. Si Attorney Duterte at mga alipores niya, ang abogado at tagapagtanggol nila.
Asierto had a long career in the PNP's Anti-Illegal Drugs Task Force from 2003 until the murder of South Korean Ji Ik-ju in 2016. Members of Asierto's task force were implicated in the killing. Even President Duterte linked Asierto to the murder. His name was also dragged in the alleged purchase of AK-47 rifles for the New People's Army.
Hindi ako involved sa pagdukot at pagpatay sa Koreanong si Ji Ik-ju. At lalong hindi ako nagbigay ng mga baril sa NPA.
Malacanang has downplayed Asierto's claims.
Ako sinabi na po ni Presidente sa isang talk to the people, sinungaling po yan si Asierto at hindi dapat paniwalaan. Yan po yung nanggaling nasa bibig mismo ng Presidente, yan po ang pananaw ng ating Presidente.
Gordon's camp said the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee did not block Asierto's report on Michael Yang and Alan Lim's alleged link to illegal drug operations. He also confirmed that Asierto has expressed willingness to testify before the Senate regarding Yang's involvement in the procurement of pandemic supplies. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. Manila residents are no longer required to wear face shields, and the rest of the capital region might follow suit. The Octa Research Group says daily COVID-19 cases in NCR may drop to less than 200 by the end of the month. And several government officials are eyeing to implement a no vaccine, no ayuda scheme. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 10:45 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.